Let's check out how to use one of these inexpensive capacitive touchscreens using an ESP32 microcontroller. These screen modules come in several different sizes, and many of them have the same pinout, making them really simple to interface with. I'm going to drive this 2.8-inch screen with a basic ESP32 dev board. If you aren't familiar with an ESP32, you program it the same way that you do an Arduino, but you get more processing power and built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth stacks. I love these screen modules, but it drives me crazy that they only label the pins on the bottom of the carrier board for the screen. So once you plug the screen into a breadboard, it helps to have a reference of the pinout handy. Here's the wiring that I'm going to use for the pins that drive the screen. Just pause the video if you need to study this more closely. Alright, I'll speed through connecting the wires. This screen module recommends powering it with 5 volts on the VCC pin. It'll work with 3.3 volts, but it won't be as bright. All of these data lines that I'm connecting operate at 3.3 volts and are for the SPI bus that drives the screen. SPI stands for Serial Peripheral Bus, which I'm pretty sure was developed by Motorola back in the day. Alright, cool. Now that everything's hooked up, let's flash the ESP32 with some code to render some stuff on the screen. In the Arduino IDE, I need to select the board that I'm using. I have this ESP32 section because I've already installed the ESP32 family of boards in the Arduino IDE. If you haven't done this already, you can click on the board manager and search for ESP32. And you want to install the one that says ESP32 by Espressif, which is the manufacturer. So now to select my board, I'll go to ESP32 and then I'll select ESP32 dev module. I'm also going to make sure that the serial port for my board is selected as well. Yeah, that looks good. You can always unplug and plug in your board to see how the list changes to figure out which is the correct port. Okay, our IDE is good to go. Now we just need to install a library called LGFX, also referred to as LGFX. After that's installed, we need to add a configuration file to our project that will be used exclusively to configure the LGFX library. I'll click on the New Tab button and enter the name lgfx_config.h. Now I'll paste my configuration in for the screen. At the top, it specifies all the ESP32 pins that are connected to the screen. So far, we've only hooked up the screen pins and not the pins for the touch controller. Here we specify the screen width and height values. And you also have to use the correct instance of your screen controller, which in my case is the ILI9341. Similarly, the correct touch controller needs to be instantiated for your screen. The information for these controller chips is usually noted on the product page where you bought your screen from. It will also be stamped on the chips on the screen's carrier board as well. There are a whole bunch of other options in this config file. For the most part, you can leave most of these alone. We'll adjust a few things later, such as rotation for the screen and the touch panel. All the code that's in this video will be linked in the description below, and I'll also link the exact screen module that I'm using. Alright, let's jump over to our sketch. At the very top, we include the LGFX library, and right after that, we include the config file that we just created. The first order of business is to create an LGFX instance, and I called mine TFT. Then you need to call init to initialize the library. I'm setting the brightness to 255, which is the max value, just to be sure that the screen is on. Then I'm filling the screen with a solid black color as a good starting point. Next, I'm setting the text size and cursor position so I can finally write out some hello world text to validate that the screen is working. Down in the loop function, I've added some code to dynamically update some text on the screen so that we can test updates. Alright, nice, check that out, it's mostly working. The colors appear to actually be inverted. That should be white text on a black background. Let's fix the rotation first so that we're rendering in landscape. Back in the LGFX config file, I'm going to adjust the rotation value on the panel configuration section. A quick way to fix the rotation is to try values between like 0 and 3. That will usually resolve your issue, but there are additional supported values that I'm not going to cover in this video. I'm setting a value of 3 because I know that will work for this screen after some trial and error. Alright, now that the orientation is correct, let's hook up the pins for the touch controller. Here's the wiring that I'm going to do if you want to pause the video. VCC and ground are already connected, so we can start with the SCL to GPIO 33. Okay, now that those are all hooked up, let's write some code to handle taps on the screen. I've defined some bounds for a button that I'll render, and I've created a function for detecting if a point is within a rectangle. And I have a function here for updating the screen with a count value that tracks the number of times my button has been tapped. Here's the code to draw my button. Then we basically do the same screen setup as before, but at the end, we call the new functions to draw the button and the button tap count. In the loop function, we have the same code as before to update the screen with the elapsed time, but now we've added code to fetch the tap coordinates from the touch controller through the LGFX library. Then we have some basic code for determining if a tap point is located within the bounds of the button and to update the count if it is. Okay, let's try it out. Uh-oh, the taps aren't being detected. Oh wait, if I tap on the top of the screen, it registers as a tap on the button. This means that the coordinate system in the LGFX library is wrong. To help with debugging, we can add some code that draws a red dot wherever it thinks we are tapping, and we can also log the position value to the serial monitor. Here's what the raw position data looks like over serial if I tap around the screen. We can fix this over on the LGFX config file by scrolling down to the touch config section and setting the offset rotation to 2. This value will be specific to your screen, similar to figuring out the rotation value for the screen itself. Okay, let's try it again with that change. Nice, now it's working. I also see the debug dots being rendered wherever I tap. Now with the correct coordinate system offset, I can tap around the corners of the screen and the raw numbers look good as well. We do still have a problem though. My debug dots are supposed to be red, my background is supposed to be black, and my text should be white. Alright, let's fix this. This kind of stumped me for a bit the first time I encountered this, but now I know that all you need to do is tell the LGFX library that the screen colors should be inverted by setting the invert value to true. And now the colors are fixed. Not too bad. Alright, let's do something different. I asked ChatGPT to generate some code for LGFX to render a multicolor rotating cube, and check this out. Super cool, right? Nice job, ChatGPT. These screens come in several sizes. The one we've been testing is 2.8 inches with a 240 by 320 resolution. Let's check out its bigger brother, which is a 3.5 inch 320 by 480. It's awesome that the pinout is exactly the same, so we can easily swap one screen for the other. To make this work properly, we need to update the LGFX config to specify 320 by 480 for the resolution. This screen uses a different driver chip called the ST7796, so we need to switch the panel instance from the ILI9341 to the ST7796. The touch controller chip is the same between both screens, so we don't have to change anything there. The rotation values and touch coordinates are different on this bigger screen. I'm not sure why, but it's easy enough to play around with the values until you find the correct ones. Alright, nice, it works. I can tap my button, and my red debug dots still show up. I tried flashing the sketch that ChatGPT generated for the rotating cube, but it wasn't able to render because the larger screen size requires too much memory to render a full screen rotating cube. So I asked ChatGPT to scale it down to handle this situation. And now we have a smaller rotating cube. You can get ESP32s that come with extra memory called PS RAM, which should help with memory-hungry situations like this. The module that I'm using right now just doesn't have PS RAM. Alright, one more feature. You may have noticed that there's a micro SD card slot on the bottom of these screen modules. Let's try this out. I put an image on the SD card and I'm going to hook up the SDCS pin on the screen to GPIO 25 on the ESP32. Jumping over to the code, I found that I need to import the sd.h header file before importing the LGFX header, otherwise there's a conflict. Here's our GPIO pin 25 definition for the SDCS pin. And I created a constant to hold the name of the file to load. Since the screen and SD card are on the same SPI bus, we can set the CS pins for both to high. This will start them both off in a disabled state. Then we do our regular screen initialization and we start the SPI bus and read from the SD card. After we fetch the image, we can call a method on the LGFX lib to draw it to the screen. Alright, check that out. My cat Rusty's promoting the Mostly Builds channel from the moon. What a swell guy. Well, I hope you found this useful. Just a reminder that the links to my code and other resources are available in the video description. If you like this kind of stuff, give the video a like and share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. Alright, I'll catch you in the next one.